Hi, fifth graders. Today we're going to start a unit that fifth graders love, and it's all about fraction division. So we're going to kick off this unit by talking about two different ways we can model fraction division. The first will be to use a number line, and the second will be to model drawing a picture. But before we get into these strategies, I want to refresh your memory about a couple important division ideas. So big picture, remember, division is all about making equal groups. And specifically, we're taking an amount and splitting it apart into equal groups. So because we know that division is about splitting things into equal groups, I always recommend to ask yourself the question, what am I splitting apart? This will help you draw your picture, write your equation, come up with your number line. It will make sure that you solve for the correct quotient. So let's say I had the expression 2 divided by 1/4. If I start by asking that question, what am I splitting apart? I know that the dividend or the amount that I split apart always comes first in an expression. So that whole number 2 is what I'm splitting apart. With the number line strategy, what I'll do is I'll take those two whole groups and I'll write them on a number line from 0 to 2. Then, since I'm dividing by 1/4, what that tells me is that I'm splitting this number line into smaller segments or pieces that are each 1/4 big. So I would recommend putting the whole numbers on your number line first just to help with your spacing. So I know that between 0 and 2 is the whole number 1. And from there, I can fill in the 1/4 segments. So I have 1/4, then 1/2, then 3/4. That brings me to the whole number 1 that I've already placed. Then to the right of the 1, I have 1 and 1/4, 1 and 1/2, and 1 and 3/4. That brings me up to the whole number 2, which is the end of my number line. So to decide what is 2 divided by 1/4, I need to count how many segments or little sections that I made. If I count it all the way over to the 2, that gets me 8 different segments. So 2 divided by 1/4 would be the same as 8. Let's take a look at a word problem example. I have the story problem. Roger has 2 yards of string. He cuts the string into pieces that are 1/3 yard long. How many pieces of string does Roger have? So let's go line by line and see if we can figure out what we're splitting apart. First, I have Roger has 2 yards of string. Well, that word has tells me that we're starting with 2 complete yards. I'm pretty sure that's the amount I'm going to be splitting apart, but let's keep reading to see if we can confirm that. The next sentence says, he cuts the string into pieces that are 1/3 yard long. Okay, so now I'm very confident that what I'm doing is I'm splitting apart 2 full yards into pieces that are each a fraction of a yard, specifically 1/3 yard long. And the question sentence asks me, how many pieces of string does Roger have? So with the number line, again, since I'm splitting apart the 2 full yards, I'll make my number line go from 0 to 2. If I know I'm cutting the string into pieces that are 1/3 of a yard long, I'll need to split up this number line into segments that are each 1/3 big. So again, I'll put in my whole number 1 first, and then I can put in my 1/3 and my 2/3 segments, and then 1 and 1/3 and 1 and 2/3. Finally, I need to count how many small sections that number line shows, because that represents the number of pieces of string that Roger has. So that would be all total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally 6 segments. So those 6 sections tells me that Roger has 6 1/3 yard pieces. So using a number line is most helpful when you're dividing a whole number by a fraction, or you're splitting apart a whole amount into fractional pieces. Let's take a look at a second strategy, drawing a picture. And again, we're going to start by asking ourselves, what am I splitting apart? So let's take a look at this example. It says Roberto is cutting 3 blueberry pies into halves to give to his neighbors. How many neighbors will get half a pie? So let's go line by line to look to answer that question. What am I splitting apart? First, Roberto is cutting 3 blueberry pies into halves to give to his neighbors. I get 2 pieces of information here. I know that I'm starting with the 3 blueberry pies. That's what I'm splitting apart. And I'm cutting them into halves or 1/2 size pieces. I picked this question because you notice the word halves is holding a place for a fractional amount. Sometimes you'll see a fraction in word form in a story problem, so be on the lookout for that. Finally, the question sentence says, how many neighbors will get half a pie? So I know this question is asking me to divide 3 by 1/2 because I'm splitting apart the 3 pies into 1/2 sized sections. So to draw a picture, I'll start by drawing 3 pies. Next, I'll slice each of these pies in half. Now I can count the number of sections that I have to see how many neighbors will get half a pie. So I can tell that Roberto can give half a pie to 6 of his different neighbors. Let's look at one more example where we can draw a picture to help us solve. This example says Adrian made 4 granola bars. He cut each bar into fourths. How many 1/4 size pieces of granola bar does Adrian have? So again, I always want to figure out first, what am I splitting apart? So the first sentence says Adrian made 4 granola bars. Because he made those 4 granola bars, I know that's an amount that I'm starting with. I feel pretty confident that that's what I'll be splitting apart, but let's keep reading to find out. The second sentence says he cut each bar into fourths. Well, when it says that he cut that apart, I know that's how I'm splitting it apart. So that tells me that the 4 granola bars is what's getting broken up, and specifically we're breaking them into fourths. Again, I saw that in word form here. Finally, the question sentence says, how many 1/4 size pieces of granola bar does Adrian have? So if I were to write an equation based on this story problem, I would say that I'm trying to solve 4 divided by 1/4. So I can start by drawing a picture of my 4 granola bars. And I know that since he cut each bar into fourths, I'll have to slice each of those rectangles into 4 sections. So that means the first rectangle has 4 sections, the second rectangle has 4 sections, the third rectangle has 4 sections, and the fourth rectangle has 4 sections. That means if I count up all of those pieces, 4 divided by 1/4 is 16, which means Adrian has 16 1/4 sized pieces of granola bars. So those are the first 2 strategies we can use to model fraction division. Have you started picking up on any patterns or anything that keeps happening? If not, go back and check out this notes page or go back and rewatch this video and see if you notice any patterns before we move on to our next couple lessons. Thanks for watching.